All right, we'll start the committee portion of the meeting. First thing on the agenda is the student board liaison policy.
Yeah, so we talked about this briefly around a month ago. Mr. Wilson reviewed it, as did I. We're recommending only one minor change. Mr. Wilson has, which is striking item 3 with respect to the guidance office verifying academic standing. The reason being is that that's easily verified by the principal or, you know, frankly, anybody that has access to Skyward to identify those grades, or to Power School, pardon me, to identify those grades. So the rest is based on an essay process. It sounds like that'll be done in conjunction with student council. And we have already identified a liaison and a alternate that would be in their duties come September. So we should be all set. The plan will be that we determine a mechanism by which they can be assigned or have access with their school-issued email to board book, and therefore they would have access to reviewed materials in a similar time frame to you folks prior to the meeting. And as the policy states, they're here to be expressing the student viewpoints on various topics and where appropriate. They do not get a vote, of course, as the board is concerned, but their opinion on multiple topics may be sought from you folks, or they may have feedback from students that they bring to the board meeting to share about various agenda items. The plan will be to have the alternate serve then as the liaison the following year, so that junior student will have a 2-year commitment. And Mike and I talked about the fact that the alternate would come in, would get access to materials, would be reviewing the materials as well, but wouldn't have to necessarily attend unless the liaison themselves couldn't attend, which I would think would be fairly rare, but with sports or whatever else is going on, there might be an occasional need to miss. So,
Any questions? I have one. Do we have to then modify the agenda for the students liaison to speak, or would they be just part of the board members? Well, that's related to training. Do you remember how we did that before?
Historically, we had them listed so that they had an opportunity to present what's going on from the school's perspective. However, we would get a lot of overlap between the high school students' perspective and the high school principal's perspective, and very little feedback, obviously, from what was going on in middle and elementary school. So it was more novel than productive necessarily in that way.
yeah, in Rapids and in Barron, we had a student board member, and we had an area denoted on each agenda just for a student update. And admittedly, they did share a lot of things that would, the high school principal may share too, in terms of like upcoming events or recent events, that sort of stuff. But I'm sure that in working with Mike, if we don't need to be redundant, so he can focus his commentary on something else that the student doesn't cover. But I do think it would be valuable for them to have an opportunity to share a few things.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to getting them back.
We'll make sure that we'll make a note that September we'll have like student liaison comment or update or something like that.
And Brent, when we had new ones come on, I would just meet with them one-on-one if they wanted to give an idea of what to expect, or
All right.
what a board meeting might look like and what the agenda looks like moving forward.
Good idea. Thanks. Well, I forgot what I was going to say. That's all right. So any other questions on the policy change?
Not on the policy, but how does it said in that the students share with the student body their information from the meeting? How do they share that? Like, do they have is it through announcements, or do they have an open forum?
I would guess it'd be via announcements.
Oh.
Yep.
Anything else?
No?
All right. Next is the board meeting schedule for 25-26. It follows the same format that we've passed or have
different day of the week, just as a parent with an athlete in school. Typically, the activities are on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Would there be any reason that we couldn't consider moving the board meeting to a different day of the week?
Can we do that at any time? We don't have to wait for the annual meeting.
I don't think so. As long as they're properly posted and we get the word out that we're shifting from Tuesdays to Wednesdays, I don't think there's any other requirement, statutory.
Change our calendar at any time with notice. When we
Yep.
put that out, we always say that it's.
The one piece is consistency with respect to what people anticipate or expect, right? And Dawn and I talked about this briefly prior to the meeting, and I don't know how long it's been, the second and fourth Tuesday, but I'm guessing for a long time. And that would be the only, possible hitch, which is why I didn't realize it was switched, But
We have a better social media presence and a strong website to put that information out there, so if we opted to. But it's been Tuesdays as long as I've been on the board. But it used to be at 7 PM and it gradually shifted earlier and earlier, and people were quite receptive or not unhappy with that, so.
Yep.
So as individual board members, obviously, we would need to put this on the agenda to have a full discussion, but does it bear putting on an agenda? Is that something you guys would consider moving to a Wednesday?
Maybe going to, I'll miss probably a couple meetings a year because of travel. Tuesdays I'm generally around. But
Okay.
if nobody cares and I say it out front,
Historically, Wednesdays were terrible for me, but that's no longer true. So.
Does it work better for the press? If we move our date?
Not with the press.
Oh, I thought you had an inter-county leader shirt on.
No. No.
Oh, sorry about
I
that.
mean, but I share information with the press, but I'm not with the press.
Okay, my apologies.
That's okay.
All right, so, yeah, I don't have a problem bringing it back. We mentioned, I'm assuming everybody likes Wednesdays versus Mondays.
Mondays is still a sports day, so it's,
Yeah, summer sports take place on Mondays, or winter sports do also. Football, I guess, all of the seasons would,
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a preference anymore either.
Now that it's out there, we can at least think about it and put it, not direct it to Wednesday on the agenda, but to consider
Yeah.
changing the day of the week so that we can at least have a full discussion about days and times.
Okay. So we'll bring this back.
So what I'll do though is I'll just go ahead and work up alternate, the same thing, but with Wednesdays being the dates. The couple still need to be Mondays, like the 27th of October is an annual meeting, and the 27th of April is board reorg and swearing in of new board members, so that'll stay the same, but I can do Wednesdays.
And I'm assuming we wouldn't do Christmas Eve, so if we needed a second board meeting in December, you'll need to put a different date on that. But that can happen from year to year on a Tuesday too.
We'll bring it back around.
thanks for the consideration.
yeah, and maybe I use the same number because my kids out of hockey now. Maybe I
Right.
gain some, lose some.
So do we continue to set this as our tentative schedule and then have that conversation, or have that conversation before we approve a schedule?
As long as we take care of it in June, I think we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because it starts in July, so I think we're ready.
Yeah, but if we're talking about it, I would recommend that we approve it right away at the first meeting in June.
Yeah.
So have the discussion and then approve it so that we can communicate with the public to the degree necessary and get the intel out there, and then
But do we change it for the second meeting in June? Or will that become confusing if we put the information out and don't change it for the second meeting in June?
So I don't think we should. I think that it should, this year, we should finish as it stands on Tuesdays, and so that would be effective July 1.
Okay.
In our communications, we'll make sure that that's clear, if it's changed.
Yeah, I would agree, I think we just stick with starting in July. All right, so we'll bring that back. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll set the meeting date and time for the 25-26 board goals. We talked about it briefly the last meeting. Maybe if there's not a heavy June agenda, we can maybe do it then, the second Tuesday of June. Or we can pick another date.
Do we know how the agenda looks for the June meeting?
I don't think it's gonna be bad based on what I know.
I don't have anything on it other than a couple things, from tonight to approve. Otherwise, I don't have anything extra.
I think we'll be set with hiring after tonight.
So that would be June 10th.
Correct.
Following the regular board meeting?
Yeah.
That makes good sense to me. The only concern I would have is whether Tashina might be available. If she's planning on coming back in June, her feedback's always been invaluable. With a 4 to 5, it is nice to have all of us. But I think we should tentatively
Yeah,
set that, and then after we talk to Tashina.
right, I agree.
And is that, so that's just like a kind of a work session or discuss and develop board goals for 25-26?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And typically, I mean, the one thing about doing it that way is that in the past, we bounced around the elementary school, alternative school. I mean, we would just come here and do it, which is fine. Or we move the board meeting, which is probably not as easy to do that, so.
Okay.
We would do that, here, have the regular board meeting, and we just stick around afterwards. And it's, traditionally it was posted as a regular meeting, right?
Open session.
Yeah, yeah, we haven't had much for the turnout.
Do I have to prepare anything for you?
No.
Whatever we need for minutes.
We don't generally even stay, it's just
No.
these guys.
Yeah. But I'm saying if you want any supplementary information or anything like that, we can get stuff together for you.
We can all think about it. I mean, like last year, we just went off the strategic plan quite a bit, obviously, and, wanted to make sure we were tying into that. I'm assuming this year will probably be somewhat similar, but, because that's still in deck, but.
Several years ago now, the admin team felt a little bit blindsided by our goals, so I think we now historically have been running them past the admin team to make sure that we're not doing something that doesn't align with what they're doing, or we're not making a goal that they're already doing, we just weren't aware, some of those sorts of things, so
Okay.
before they passed, we'll want to make sure the admin has a KPK.
No.
Just feedback.
No problem.
All right, so we'll tentatively schedule that for next June 10th, after the regular board meeting. All right, moving on to discuss the open enrollment. In your packet was the normal spreadsheet for that. And this is all students or just new students?
These would be new applications, correct?
Yes, this is just new. Anybody who's already currently open enrolled continues here for policy.
Okay. Any questions, comments? There's one deny on there, and that's just because we don't have the accommodations.
No, it's because we set caps in January of each year,
Yeah, yeah.
and if they're, I think the only place we had space, and I'm not sure if that space is even open any longer, is speech. It wasn't speech.
No, I think we're
There was
close.
one category where I think we had a seat, if I recall, or maybe that was the prior January, but. Anyway, if they apply for open enrollment and have special needs, and it exceeds the cap that's been set by the district, then that application is denied.
other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the addendum for the CISA shared services contract.
So as the board's already aware, we did a posting for our current school psychologist is retiring at the end of the school year. We did a posting to fill the school psychologist position, had 2 applicants, one being the individual that was an intern here in the fall semester, and the other being an individual that had applied coming from the opposite side of the state. We did interviews and had a conversation to offer to the individual that actually served as our intern, and they chose to take a position elsewhere. We interviewed the second person, and based on some follow-up there, decided not to move forward in that regard. And so, therefore, based on timing, we're going to do a point in the school year with something like school psychologists. We want to have that locked down. Turn to CISA. CISA does have 1.0 FTE school psych, so that basically means 200 days we would have them full-time. But of course, we're paying for their entire package, their total package, salary and benefits, plus an increase or a markup that CISA passes along for operational costs and administration and those sorts of things. It's expensive. I'm not going to debate that. We also, although don't have any options. And so I think it makes the most sense that we lock down the school psych via the CISA contract for now as we head into next year. And then what we intend to do is do another posting come January, February of next year to see if we can find our own school psych so we don't have to pay the additional amount for them being a CISA employee. But school psychologists across the state are hard to come by. I was surprised we even had 2 applications, to be honest with you. In my past experience, we have gone without school psychs because you just can't find it. You can't create a human being with the schooling and the degree required. So at least we've got an option.
All right, any questions on that?
And when you don't have one, do you open yourself up for
Well, ironically, you can't really not have one. Back in the old days, I know when John Gillen was here, he was a licensed school psychologist and special ed director, and the district was lucky enough to have him take team it and do, 2 things at once, as it were. That's fairly rare, and there are certain evaluations that need to be undertaken by a school psych, and based on our special ed population, the way it stands, it's pretty much a full-time gig. So you can't really not. And if we didn't have a human being, we would likely be looking at some kind of virtual option or some other kind of stuff that is really tough to implement. So.
Do we feel like if we had more time to hire somebody, that we would potentially get more candidates in our bucket, or not?
No.
Okay.
It was posted for a long time. We posted it, I don't remember, but I think we posted in February, and it was posted for February, March. I think we did our interviews in April, or late March. Maybe it was even posted in January, but yeah, we had it out there for 6 or 8 weeks for sure. And if you look on weekend, there's probably 150 school site postings out there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's wild. Yeah.
Have to dig in the archives and find a student that went to school for that. Right. Try to get one back. For a mom.
Any other questions or comments? No, we'll move on to the athletic trainer services.
Okay, so we've talked about this before too, not specifically the Go4 contract, but based on the circumstances that the board's already in the loop on with respect to trying to find athletic trainer services here locally, those things didn't really materialize. So you basically have 2 options, which is to post and try to hire an athletic trainer on your own, or work through an entity like this Go4 Healthcare, who basically employs athletic trainers, and then we purchase the services from them. That's what this contract outlines. Chautauqua Warehouser School District is that's where I've got the information about this Go For services, and then Tara Rose, the athletic director, reached out and had a conversation with that kind of got the ball rolling on this. What it ends up being is basically full-time athletic training services during the school year. That's billed out at a rate of, I think it's $84 an hour or something like that. As you know, what we're currently doing is utilizing people that aren't technically athletic trainers. They're first responders or EMTs, and it's great that they're willing to assist and that we have coverage where we need coverage, but it would also be preferred that we had an athletic trainer that is basically for the school district, that is present before practices and at contests and that kind of thing during the school year. The contract covers August, early to August 6th or 8th, something like that, through about the middle of June. So it'll cover basically anytime school sports are running during the school year.
Basically a 10-month contract.
Yep.
And you said full-time, but what does that technically mean as far as it's not 40 hours a week?
No, full-time for what our need would be, so, yeah, I'm using the wrong terminology, but I think that Tara had figured 3 to 5 hours per evening, and then you're looking at, most of the time, 5 nights a week, and then some weekend obligations with attorneys or other things that we host. I don't believe they'd be traveling anywhere unless there was a special request that was made that we needed a trainer for some, I don't know, a large invitational or something where they needed extra assistance, and it would be on our dime that we'd send that trainer along specifically with our team, but typically it's during practice and home events that that person would be working with kids.
I'm having a hard time reading the fine print right now. I looked over it earlier, but can you remind me, would it be the same person or likely the same person most of the time?
That's the impression that I get, yes. I didn't read anywhere in the contract where it's guaranteed. What it is that they're guaranteeing the services. So I think that's what they're looking for, and that's ultimately where they want to go with it, but it's not guaranteed to be the same person every time.
For clarification, this is for like club related, just school related. But if one of our clubs did want to have an athletic trainer, could they hire somebody from this place or use our trainer?
What we'd end up doing is likely making a contact at the time, and depend on circumstances, but I don't know if Go For does, like, hey, I just need an AT for 4 hours one time, you know what I'm saying? That'd be a question for them. I know in the contract, we're not supposed to farm these people out to do different things. I don't know if it means we're having a local thing and that's our football team and we'd like you to be involved, that's, hosted by the Booster Club, for example. That may be allowable because it's still the school team. But what they're referring to arguably is like, yeah, well, we have an AT, let's send them over to, let's have them do Little League, or they can come out and do, you know what I'm saying? And part of that has to do with liability and their scope of practice and what we're using them for. So some of those nuanced things, if there would be a need, we'd have to have a conversation with the company to make sure we're doing, doing the right thing. So I don't know that the answer to that is a definitive no.
Okay.
But we'll have to make the call and get the answer to the question when the time comes.
This isn't limited though, just to high school. I mean, if a middle school kid rolls his ankle, he can go to he or she.
Correct.
It sounds like a school like us would grab this individual and try to hire him ourselves, that we would pay
Yeah.
a penalty.
There's a $10,000 fee if you headhunt them. And so if we are going to separate from the contract and look to hire our own ET, there has to be a 60-day separation or something like that with the AT that's providing the services. So we just have to be mindful about when and how we do a posting if we're going to, and then whether or not we're actually able to hire. If the AT that is working through Go4, and we really like them and they really like us, and they post it and they apply and it's within the 60-day window, we're gonna pay them 10 grand if we hire them. So,
Well, within 6 months.
yeah,
But yeah, even after the termination agreement, within that next 6 months, it's like a
right,
non-compete.
Right.
clause, essentially. So it discourages grabbing their individual, but still allows for the possibility if you want to pay up.
it does.
Do you think that's something that we would try to do next year? I mean, not necessarily this person, but post it and see if you can get, the issue is it's not a full-time position.
That's the issue, and I think like one of the reasons that Tara and Mike and I thought about moving in this direction is the fact that we're not in the business of hiring athletic trainers, right? So we don't have the reach, like for our posting, where would you put a posting? In the newspaper, on Indeed, and then on weekend? Well, ATs aren't looking at weekend. If we're lucky enough that they're reading the local newspaper and then apply, you got that option. And if you put anything on Indeed, you know how that goes. Indeed, pardon me, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
You get spam or something.
Oh, you get, it's wild, yeah. I don't know. You'll get a seasoned bus driver looking to be your next school psychologist or something like that. It's very interesting. once you
Seasoned
get on
bus
Indeed.
driver, what?
Yeah.
We might never have no bus.
Yeah. Bad example.
Because she's like, I'm all over that.
Yeah. Warehouse manager, but by the way, I'm really good with kids, so let me be an aide, or, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's odd when you get on Indeed. Yeah.
But it would be, is it true that it would be more cost effective to have our own hired in-house? Or not necessarily?
I think we'll be able to answer that question more definitively. You know, the average from investigation and research prior, the average AT pay is like 50 to 60,000 bucks a year. And then you're talking about a family package, typically with insurance, that's usually the default that you're gonna think at, so that's another 25,000. So, I mean, out the door, if you're hiring somebody that you're gonna employ a full-time salary or full-time employment, it's gonna cost you around 80, 85 grand a year. And so at 84 bucks an hour, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what that stacks up to be, and I think that'll help us make a decision on whether or not we wanna dip our toes in that water and see once what we can find. Yeah, because if we're paying 20 grand or 30 grand more than we would if we hired the person, then I think it's almost a no-brainer. Then it's like, yeah, try to get the word out there and see what we can do.
Are they flexible, like in the summertime when you, like football first gets going, you typically, I'm not trying to speak for the new coach or anything, but have longer, practices or maybe even 2-a-days. And then you also got your volleyball. I mean, they could potentially be here all day for, like 8 hours a day for, that first few weeks. But then obviously when school starts, you're down to a few hours a night. You know what I mean? But you
Yeah.
still paid that same rate.
Overtime is 126 an hour.
That's correct. So there is an overtime rate, but there's, I read somewhere in here.
That's if they break 40 hours though?
Correct.
Yeah, and then you were saying that's unlikely.
I wouldn't,
Yeah, I wouldn't
Think
know
so.
what it would
And
go
you
back.
wouldn't want to even maybe do that like on a weekend tournament or something. You might say like, hey, why don't you back off your practice nights or something, right?
or we have to. Yeah, you never know. It's gonna be given context. I don't recall, and I'm not finding it immediately, I don't think that there's a specific day-hour limit that's outlined. And I think most of what would be done is what's mutually agreed with the AT, and because we are obligated to use the number of hours that we indicated we're gonna contract for, which makes a lot of sense. So, twofold. We don't want to burn through all of those hours on the front end, but we also want to ensure that we're using the hours that we said we were going to use. So I don't know that we're going to be in a scenario too terribly frequently where this person's just here for 8 hours the whole day. I mean, it's conceivable. But then, as Matt's indicating, we would draw back what they might be doing the rest of the week if that's possible. So some of these things I don't honestly know the answer to until we start playing the game and see what happens.
946 guaranteed hours, we're looking at a little under $80,000 for
Correct.
this contract.
Yep.
So if you avoid overtime, it's like the same price or a little bit less than having a full-time person.
Right, so then you're also talking 40 hours a week versus, you're probably looking at, I'm gonna say 20 to 30.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, because the normal 40 hours is what, 2080, 2,080 hours?
Correct. Yep. So it's basically like halftime,
Mhm.
and that's another reason it's tough to piece people together to get coverage.
That's why historically we've been able to do it through medical centers that can keep them busy otherwise, but that's a model that's no longer working for our medical centers.
Right.
All right, any other questions? All right, we'll move on to the food service pricing. Looking at an increase there too.
Yeah, so what you see reflected in the supplemental materials is that Amy Dauscher, our food services director, is recommending a 10-cent per meal increase across the board, so high school, middle school, elementary, and adult. And the prices are reflected there. The rationale being the potential impact of tariffs, as well as they're planning on doing 2 options for lunch district-wide, so at the elementary too. And so there's a little bit of additional cost seated in that.
This does not impact Little Saints. Don't they get food from them too?
Yes, so if that's not on there, either there's no increase or we would have to talk to Amy about that, I guess.
Were they paying the elementary rate before?
No, because different portions and depending on the age, the really little ones get like 3 bites of food.
Yeah, and I didn't think about making sure it was on there.
Do you want me to check with,
My guess is that that would be a 10-cent increase as well.
okay?
Yeah.
You don't want to make a decision based on yes?
No.
Which we can always bring the daycare prices back if we have to, and still approve these others.
Yeah, we can do these as presented, and if we have to add it to the next.
Yep.
All right, that is the end of the committee meeting. I'll call the board meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Matt Bryce,
Here.
Tashina Rager, Don Milky,
Here.
Ronnie Schuler,
Here.
Brent McCurdy.
Here. All right, we'll have the reading of the mission statement and the rules by Matt Bryce.
All right, the mission statement. The mission of the school district of St. Croix Falls is to provide a supportive, student-centered learning environment that cultivates character, fosters academic excellence, and embraces diversity. The board meeting rules. Focus on the mission, vision statements of the district. Come prepared. Be respectful of others and open, accepting of ideas. Actively participate. Avoid side conversations. Remember, board meetings are open forum.
Thank you, Matt. We'll start with principal's comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Imhoff.
All right. Last week, the 8th grade went to Valley Fair for engineering day and enjoyed the park. The weather was perfect, and I just want to brag about our kids were great. They had to come to a theater at 12:30. You know, like we didn't have them all grouped together. They were all there. They paid attention. They were interactive with the person. The group in front of me was driving me crazy. So I just want to praise up our kiddos. They were awesome. And then afterwards, they rode rides, and we ended the day in the bumper cars, just laughing and giggling. It was just a really great trip with this 8th grade. We're wrapping up the year. Today we collected Chromebooks and cleaned out lockers. Well, first round of locker clean out. I think some children couldn't carry all their bags home. So we will have more bags going home tomorrow. Tomorrow, the 5th grade's going to the Science Museum, and the 8th grade will have their 8th grade recognition at 2 o'clock in the auditorium here. And then Thursday's our annual last day activities. The kids have a shortened schedule in the morning, and then they'll either go to Wild Mountain Bowling or have activities at school in the afternoon. And then looking a little bit ahead, we have good numbers for summer school, and that starts June 9th. I'm really excited because Mr. Zempf also got his hunter's education certificate to teach it. So now we have Mr. Zempf and Mr. Stieber teaching it, where that class was always like filling up right away. Well, now we can reach all those kiddos, make sure we have people out there safely hunting. And those two gentlemen are good people to teach that class.
Were they co-teachers then?
Nope, we're gonna have 2 separate classrooms.
Good.
So any questions for me?
Well, they didn't gang up on you with the bumper cars, did they?
I was rather surprised at how many couldn't drive. They were just sitting there, like, push the pedal. And then the whole steering mechanism in a bumper car is different than normal. And us teachers maybe got a little more joy out of it than some of the students.
All right, very good, sounds good. Ms. Platt?
Well, I sent you a pretty big update in the last email, so I'll just touch on a couple highlights. The ES was recognized as a school of excellence by the Wisconsin Reading League. That was very exciting. Mr. Bourne and I were invited to speak, but neither of us can go. So if one of you guys wants to go, we'll go to Green Bay, talk about our district. We had our 3rd grade annual Writers Symposium. That was amazing with Jonathan Rand, my best friend and best-selling author. He came and delighted the kiddos. Field trips everywhere. My gosh, have we been out and about. The middle school came over to the high school and did a great job getting the kids psyched about moving in, the 4th graders into moving to 5th grade, and they visited the middle school and they're super excited. Their favorite thing is lockers. That's what they care about most, lockers.
That's the most stress.
Well, they're very, very excited about lockers. And then I just really, I want to celebrate the transportation department again because they've done such an amazing job this year and I'm so proud of them. Today we had our driver appreciation barbecue, delicious food and wonderful, wonderful people. And I just want to let you know that since December, and I was trying to even think before that, but then my brain was just like done. I could only get to December. There have been 0 complaints about drivers, and that, as an elementary school principal, I can tell you the 2 things that I get complaints most about are food service and transportation. Those are the things that loom large in elementary school parents' minds. So to not get any complaints, probably it was since October, but I could only be sure since December. I'm very proud of our team and we're very excited about next year.
Very good. You deserve some kudos for that too. How is the staffing? I mean,
Terrific. Right now, every single driver is coming back. They're all top notch. We have Kirk who can sub, which is amazing, and we have, honestly, it's unreal. We have plenty of trip drivers. We have plenty of subs. We're just doing great.
good.
I was gonna ask the same thing with all the field trips you mentioned.
No, we haven't had a problem since mid-year, since we closed all those gaps. We haven't had any problems getting everyone exactly where they need to be. You know, our driving crew's not a bunch of young people though.
Right.
So it's a constant need for, that's when Craig said he found that really strong bus driver that wanted to be the school psych. I was like, well, let's have him drive bus because.
And I know I shared with you and CC Craig as well, but I'm getting a lot of feedback from the drivers about how they feel respected and trusted and really appreciated this year. So
I think the whole admin team has worked really hard to bring them in and have them feel a part of our team. And next year we have even bigger plans. Kirk is going to do some things to help families get to know drivers better.
That's a good idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry, you are done?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Greg, superintendent's comments.
Yeah, so I'll speak for both Mike and I, since Mike is not here this evening. Graduation was Friday night at 7 o'clock. The gym, of course, was wall-to-wall people, and it was fantastic, top to bottom, front to back. 3 different students had some commentary and some speeches that they gave, which were all very well done. And they got to throw their hats this year. That apparently was a big deal. Between Mike and I, the executive decision was made to allow hat throwing. I didn't know that that was going to be so nicely received, but so yeah, it was excellent. And Mike had attended. I was chit-chatting with him today. Had attended a handful of graduation parties that he was invited to, and he said he had multiple comments from grandparents and parents about how what a nice graduation ceremony it was and how well it went. I'm also going to talk about last week there was a tornado warning issued as kids were getting loaded onto buses here at the middle school. And so, as you well know, I wasn't around. That was actually 2 weeks ago, wasn't it, Rita?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
It was
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Feels like 1 minute ago.
I was
so-
in Utah, and I got a text from Rita, there's a tornado warning, should I pull kids off the buses? To which I responded, yes, and then some subsequent communication back and forth. What I didn't get to witness, but I'm not surprised by at all, was the way that our students behaved. So all of these elementary and middle school kids, and the handful of high school kids that ride the buses, are put into the middle school gym area, which is a tornado shelter, and they're doing their thing. There were high school students and older middle school students in general, that were talking with elementary kids, comforting elementary kids. There was kids that were here for practices that couldn't be at practice, so they were in the gym and being with those kids. And everything that I had heard was about how awesome it went. What's not awesome is that then the buses were about 40 or 45 minutes late as the tornado warning had passed, but aside from that, it was fantastic. And that kind of is the piece that you see repeated on a regular basis here, is the conduct of the students. And of course, the staff. If it wasn't for the staff members, that I don't know that the kids would just do everything as awesome as they do it, but totally worth pointing out. It was fantastic. And the tie there is what we saw too in graduation, with the receptiveness of all of the kids that walked across the stage and the amount of cheers that they received. And it wasn't awkward or strange. It was wildly supportive of every kid that walked across the stage. So it's just awesome. It feels really good. It set the weekend off on a great note. And yeah, so that's pretty much what I had. We're wrapping up the end of the school year, of course, and then getting ready to load up for summer school. I'm excited and ready for when the kids come back next year. There's a handful of seniors that I miss already, because I got to mess with them every day and I don't see them, but I'll pick a new group next year and tease those kids. So.
All right, so when something like that happens with the buses, do you have to pull in teachers to kind of help stick
So
around?
this time it happened so quickly that really, and we learned a lot but it happened so quickly that all I could do is get the drivers to say, you got to get the kids off. And then Daryl's team they were just amazing. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see all the kids coming off the bus to know it's an weather emergency when you know there's bad weather. But his team was just there, just directing kids, getting them where they needed to be. The drivers were all amazing. And we did learn a couple lessons about quick communication that I think were really valuable. Really valuable lessons.
Glad to hear that you did that, did the lessons learned.
Oh, yeah, we did. We've debriefed and learned some lessons, and I think we have a couple things we're looking to tweak a little bit, because that quick communication is harder than you think it would be. But that's why it was so great, because you don't know until you're in that situation. So we did learn, and Emily and I have an emergency quick cheat sheet card that we think is going to be helpful. next time. But it was amazing. Daryl's team was amazing. Daryl was amazing right there, supportive and helpful. I was so appreciative. It's really not,
The bus drivers were awesome.
they're
They
amazing.
were worried about, they didn't know where all their kids were, and I'm like, well, they're
Don't
in the
worry.
building.
Mhm.
We know that, and then even afterwards, they're checking them off, making sure they're all there, consoling kids that, some of the littles were, it was scary. But they were, it was
One
just
on
a
each
good community building
It
experience.
really was. In the end, it was really positive, really amazing. And I do want to say, because I'm the one, because Craig wasn't there, and so I sent out the information on Power School and a phone call and a text and an email, and I just got like at least, it was more than a dozen parents just saying thank you, your drivers were amazing. The kids, they specifically, a parent reached out to say, tell the high school principal that the high school kids were so helpful. It was just really awesome. But I hope it never happens again.
Not at 3:35.
Yeah, perfect time.
All right, kudos to everybody then, thank you. Board members related to training, did anybody attend any trainings? Anyone have comments? All right, public comments on any agenda items? All right, no presentations or awards. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Ronnie,
I'll second.
second by Don. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to curriculum and policy. And we talked about this last week. We want to vote on the date and location for prom 2026, so April 25th, 2026 at the Falls.
I'll make a motion to approve prom for April 25th, 2026 at the Falls.
So a motion by Ronnie,
Second.
second by Matt. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to discuss and vote on the hiring of a candidate for the middle school social studies teacher.
The candidate, and Daryl can speak more to the process if the board would like to hear, but the candidate recommended is a gentleman by the name of Garrett Johnson.
Yep, recent graduate from, Eau Claire. I think he's the one from Eau Claire. Real dynamic young man, lives in grew up in Grantsburg, so he's got some local ties. Did some wonderful stuff with his student teaching, so we're looking forward to that. I had the 8th grade team and Mrs. Hafes and Mr. Zemp in on the interviews, and he was our number one. There's no doubt about it.
Very good. Any questions? All right, I'll take a motion to vote on the hiring of Garrett Johnson as the middle school social studies teacher.
I can make a motion to hire Garrett Johnson as the middle school social studies teacher.
A motion by Don,
I'll second.
second by Ronnie. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to hiring a middle school math teacher position.
I'd like to bring forth Dan Campbell. Dan has been working in the middle school since the beginning of second semester last year. He fits so well in with that team. The kids, I go in, observe the class. The kids are learning. He brings in different ideas. He's taught before at the high school level, so it's just kind of nice that he gets the whole perspective of, okay, this is where we're moving forward here. But he also understands, well, this is where the kids are at now. So he will be an excellent addition to the team there.
Very good. Take a motion to approve the hiring of Dan Campbell as a middle school math teacher.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Matt,
I'll second.
second by Don. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. substitute position.
So that position was created by board action a handful of months ago. We've posted and subsequently interviewed a couple of people. The committee that was comprised of myself, Rita, Mike, and Brian settled on Carly Nelson. That's that person. She is coming to us from a private school in Toma, where she taught for a year. So relatively recent grad, has a year under her belt.
Carly Nelson, you said? Correct. All right, I'll take a motion to hire Carly Nelson as the full-time district substitute.
I'll make a motion to hire Carly Nelson as our full-time district substitute.
I have a motion by Ronnie,
Second.
second by Matt. Any further discussion?
What's her undergrad in?
Yeah, Fire and Health.
Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I forgot to say aye, but, yeah, I don't know, blanked out, I guess.
All right, we'll move on to financial, and last board meeting, we looked at the proposal presented by Mr. Craig for the phone and bell paging systems updates. I'll take a motion to approve that.
I'll make a motion to approve the phone and bell paging systems proposal as presented.
A motion by Ronnie,
I'll second.
second by Don. Is there any further discussion? Do we need to do a roll call vote on this one?
What's the dollar amount?
$20,194.33.
Please.
Roll call vote?
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Sheena Rager, Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brett McCurdy.
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is the open enrollment in and out applications for 25-26. Again, that was what we looked at earlier in the committee meeting. And again, that was just the new applications.
I'll make a motion to approve the open enrollment in and open enrollment out applications for the 25-26 school year as presented.
A motion by Ronnie,
I'll second.
second by Don. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next we'll vote on the addendum to the 25-26 CISA Shared Services Contract for the school psychologist services, which we looked at earlier in the committee meeting too.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Matt,
I'll second.
second by Don. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Sheena Rager, Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brett McCurdy.
Yes. All right, moving down to the contract for the Goal 4 Healthcare LLC for basically the athletic trainer services. We looked at that also in the committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Go for Healthcare LLC for the athletic trainer services as presented.
Second that?
I'll second.
Motion by Ronnie and a second by Don. Any further discussion? We'll do a roll call vote on that as well.
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Sheena Rager, Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brett McCurdy.
Yes. I don't see any announcements. Okay, upcoming events, again, we have the 8th grade recognition tomorrow. I will be at that. Last day of school is Thursday, the 29th?
Yes.
All right, and the next board meeting will be June 10th. Again, followed by the board goal setting session. And again, it's basically a discussion at that point. We typically will bring it back for approval at a later date. And then, if needed, the June 24th meeting. All right, Matt, you want to discuss the rules of the meeting?
Yes. Focused on the mission, vision statements of the district, came prepared, were respectful of others, and open accepting of ideas. actively participated, avoided side conversations, and remembered board meetings are open forum.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn to executive closed session pursuant to section 19.18, or 19.851C of Wisconsin statutes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive closed session.
I'll second.
Motion by Don and a second by Ronnie. We'll take a roll call vote.
Matt Bryce,
Yes.
Tashina, Don Milky,
Yes.
Ronnie Schuler,
Yes.
Brent McCurdy.
Yes. Thank you all. We are in closed session.
Thank you, school board.